Welcome, everyone. I'm expecting Patty. From here, she wasn't coming. She's not online, and Michael is on his way, as is Alexander, who is going to be late. So welcome. First one. We shall wait for Patty and Michael to get their stuff together.
Well, LA.gov, maybe you can secure.
In what way?
I don't know. It just maybe insecure. I think somebody needs to view their certificate.
Yes. Let's start with welcome approval of meeting minutes for November 5th, 2025. Hoping people have a chance to review them. Does anyone have any comments on the meeting minutes?
Good to me. Very good.
No comment.
Yeah. With an appreciation for doing.
Oh, I do have a comment. Seems like maybe a typo at the end. It said the next two meetings are going to be at 6 and 5. Am I talking about? I don't think that's right, is it?
I can fix that.
What?
Should be at 5, so I.
Yes, I think the minutes said they're going to be at 6. At the very end.
Okay, someone want to vote a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
So moved. I second.
All in favor, starting with Patty.
I.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Vikram and
Aye.
Aye.
Ray. We will open up to public comment, but I don't think we have anyone from the public today.
No members of the public, in person or online.
Great. And I think we are going to hand this over to Shelley.
Okay, I guess, do you mind, sort of pulling up the, decarbonization roadmap?
And
Thanks, I was just opening stuff and I was like, never mind. So, I guess it was just 2 weeks ago that we went over, the preliminary draft of the decarbonization roadmap. Thank you all for your comments, and we did make some amendments to the roadmap, so you're seeing a new version of it today. The most striking is that there are different photos in it, which are more appropriate. Thank you for pointing out stuff that just went right over my head about the fact that it wasn't a municipal building, or that the major in the list of major buildings, we were showing a building that wasn't a major building. So we've made those changes, but sort of more of substance. We really clarified the fact that the report really only deals with municipal assets. It doesn't deal with the community assets. That FY22 is the baseline. And we tried to make that clear in both in the text as well as in the charts by showing FY22 as the baseline. I know there was some concern about what the roadmap is, so we tried to really clarify that it is really a very preliminary guideline used for planning purposes, that more technical studies will be needed for it to determine feasibility. And I know I think this conversation will be followed by a conversation that I think, Nick, you're going to be leading in terms of some analysis that you've done in terms of the financial aspects of it, but that the roadmap, very clearly is, or I'm hoping very clearly, states that this is not a financial document. This does, doesn't even attempt to do this. So, we also clarified, I think in response to a question that Alan had raised, that at one point, one of the charts shows a no decarbonization emissions reduction over time, and we clarified that was due to greening and enhanced use of renewable energy use in the electric grid. And we also clarified that a prior study about the town hall, health department, and senior center didn't involve any energy efficiency measures. That was determined in a prior study that work also on a very high level could be done without the need to do those to improve the envelope, for example. We also clarified that in the significant impact section where we're talking about Brookline High School, the UAB, and the Karain pool and gym, that the growth in gas use is due in part to the new STEM wing, which replaced a much smaller wing of the building. So there's a much larger area that's being used. That only in part explains the growth in natural gas in the last few years. Some of that, some of it I don't totally understand, but some of it also has to do with COVID and higher levels of ventilation in buildings and trying to, energy use has grown to some extent because we now ventilate buildings much more than we used to pre-COVID. So, but we don't have a full understanding about why the gas usage has grown as much in those buildings, but we're digging into it. But we do know that in part, some of it has to do with the fact that the building is just bigger than it used to be. There needs to be some small clarification in this version, because it says the new STEM building replaced an old STEM wing, and it replaced another wing, but it wasn't a STEM wing. So we're going to be making that change. I guess, one other thing is that there had been some discussion about the earlier version of the roadmap had some reference to possible demolition of Runkle in the future, which, quite frankly, I apologize. I'm still learning my way around the buildings around here. So that, when I read it, went right over my head, didn't register. And we realized that was an error. That was just an error on the consultant's part. There had been no discussion about possible demolition of Runkle, so we've removed that text from the plan. And then, thank you to Nick's very careful eyes for pointing out the discrepancy, the typo between whether it was supposed to be on page 2 versus page 9, of whether it's supposed to be 7,755 metric tons of CO2 or 7,775 metric tons of CO2. And it is the first number, 7,755, not 75. So we will be making that amendment as well.
Did you get the positive negative numbers then?
Did I what?
The positive negative numbers?
No, I didn't.
So on page 1, there's is it 1? Very, very close to the top is targets. It says suggested table 1, suggested emissions reduction timeline as provided by whatever DOER. And there's 5 lines here. And the first line is 0, -20, -35, -60, -100. And then you've got 2 lines which are expressed positive numbers, and then a negative number, and then whatever. If you go down to table 5, which is kind of like what we're planning to do, the first line, instead of negative numbers, is a positive number. And the 4th line, instead of being negative numbers, is a positive number. And it doesn't really matter. I think it's kind of clear, except that it doesn't match the original
Right.
template, right? So I don't think anyone would really catch that, but in the event that they're taking these numbers and plugging them in somewhere, we probably want to have the same
You're,
plus and
you're,
minus.
you're absolutely right. I'm not gonna have you proofread anything I do.
I didn't
Right.
think
That went right over my head and you mentioned it last time and I didn't know.
I think actually, was it Bill that mentioned it last time?
I don't remember.
I
who
remember.
noted it.
Someone did. I think it was Bill.
Well, indirectly, but yes, I mean, it was about some other aspect of it, but
Credit where credit's due. And by the way, it was just AI. It wasn't me. It's the usual answer.
But, I mean, you know, so with that future change noted, you know, I will, I'll remember it this time. So I will, make that change. So those were really the modifications between the last report and this report, you know, I'm hoping that we caught the lion's share or maybe, you know, of the concerns that people raised and, open for questions about, you know, about the report. We're obviously hoping that the advisory board feels comfortable with the report, but we want to, you know, give you a chance to think about it and discuss it.
We'll start with people online. If Kathleen or Vikram has anything to say, because they always get forgotten. Do you have anything that you want to comment on? Anyone in the room?
Nope.
what we were seeing just a moment ago on screen, the table 1 versus table 5. At least the version I'm looking at, the numbers themselves are also different, not just the size.
Well, so the top one is a template.
Yeah.
So this is what we expect to roughly see.
Yeah.
And the bottom one is this, and this is what Brookline is suggesting we will do. I think that's right, yes?
Yeah, I think table 1 this is what DOER, when they put this together, said, we recommend that you try to reach these targets.
Yeah.
And on this timeline. And then table 5 is based on Brookline's buildings, you know, each community has different buildings based on Brookline's buildings and fleet, not only buildings and fleet. We think these are the timelines that you may be able to reach.
Some clarification of that might be.
Hmm?
Some clarification of that might be beneficial.
Okay,
That people were comparing the two tables and finding the signs not
Confusing.
matching. The numbers not matching also might be.
There's actually, on that point, and I don't think this matters very much because it's really going to DOER, it's going to the state anyway. You don't need table 1.
what?
I don't know that you need table 1, but I mean, you can have it, but I don't know that
Right.
actually adds to the document particularly,
That's right.
right? Because it's a little bit confusing.
Mhm.
It's a template. So people, it will ask, it sort of raises more questions than it answers.
I can
Like, just
certainly ask whether, we can remove it. What is a little funny about this whole
Because you have to
process
follow.
is that DOER says this is what you have to include. And I don't know what's a guideline for what we have to include and what is actually what we have to include. So I will ask about table 1, and if table 1 is not required, I can certainly recommend that we remove it.
And if not, I think the clarification I mean, it does say what it is.
Sort of, but yes. Okay.
Does anyone else have any comments?
Only, well, I think it's captured all of my remarks. The other thing, I've been doing some additional work on Birdie since our last meeting, and one of the things that's interesting here is that first of all, the 0 over time, which I've included in Birdie now, okay? Because that's the way people are going to do it, I believe. The fact that the municipal buildings, the analysis, at least analysis so far, says that we're not going to have, that they're going to be able to electrify, there's not going to be a lot of money for deep energy retrofits and so on, which is good because what I've been discovering as I've started to get some actual numbers on these things is that the deep energy retrofits of these buildings is generally 2 or 3 or 4 times the cost of the heat pump. Usually really big, depending on how much you do. So that's important and presumably it's an accurate statement here, and that really helps to keep the costs low.
I didn't hear the ones with 2 or 3 times the cost of.
If you look at the dollars per dollar per square foot, dollar per unit, various measures, the cost for the deep energy retrofits is multiples of the cost to install the VRF heat pump system.
So I think to put it another way is that this report suggests we don't need to do a lot of envelope work on the buildings.
But I'm sorry, I shouldn't have cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I think the report assumes that we'll do some. I don't think the report says
Nothing.
we won't do any,
Yeah,
but when it referenced that particular prior report. For 3 buildings, that prior report had not assumed any envelope upgrades.
right, yeah, and if you're doing air sealing and some things like that, it's not a big deal, but like at 50 Pleasant Street, the Brookline Housing Authority building, they put in super insulated modular panels. That's a lot of money to do that sort of work.
So I do have, welcome Alexander.
Hi all, sorry I'm late. I was just across town for an event, so my apologies. Didn't forget about you.
I'm gonna have one comment on the roadmap, which is that we've been working on trying to get a view of the decarbonization of town buildings since the day I joined, and probably long before that. So I think it's awesome we have something now. It's really exciting. On the cost document, I don't think I have a lot to say on this because it's so preliminary. But the only comment I would make on it is the comment I made before, which is, and thank you, Alan, for the time you spent going through it. That a even preliminary estimate doesn't kind of paint a picture of financial ruin is great. Right? Recognizing that, it's probably off here and there. And Alan was talking about the fact they sent me a note that said that gas boilers are probably cheaper than was represented in cost estimate. But even taking that into account, it wouldn't make enough of a difference that, it's not $1 billion. It's not some enormous amount of money. And that's really encouraging. Yeah. That's all I got. So, yes.
It focused on the building side of things.
I did not look at cars at all.
Seems to me that would be a good companion piece.
I will put one together.
Oh, okay.
Or you can put one together.
Well, I will take many more hours of effort and with less accuracy than your magic friend Claude.
So why don't you and I sit down and do it together?
That'd be fine. Yeah, I think just some companion piece that says,
Yeah.
because I think that one's a little more like direct arithmetic. Because you have the model, the year of acquisition, some approximation of cost, here's the profile over time for cost. Now, would not take into account rebates or grants or anything else like that, which would be another component to it. But I think it's a similar kind of piece of information.
Sure. I was not really that concerned about the transportation because cars die after a while anyway, so they have to be replaced. But yes, I mean, and I guess new systems do too. Yeah, let's do it. It'll be fun. So the agenda item is presentation and possible vote.
Want to make a motion?
Absolutely.
So without advance, I move that having reviewed the decarbonization roadmap as presented by the Sustainability and Natural Resources Division, ZIAB recommends that the select board approve it and submit it to the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources as part of the climate leader community application. Did you just make that up? No, I wrote it down.
Should have said yes, but
Well done.
I'll second it.
Oh, cheers.
All in favor, starting with Vikram.
Aye.
Kathleen,
Aye.
Bill,
Hi.
Patty,
I,
I.
Well done.
Thank you.
next item on the agenda, and we are roaring ahead, we're 9 minutes ahead of schedule, which makes me very happy. Is discussion and possible vote on section 94 of H 4744. And I think I'm gonna hand it over to Patty.
okay. Folks, I'm sorry for the late submission of the materials for this. Town meeting has interfered a little bit. But I put together, you have, with the meeting materials, a memo to you that has in the body, a proposed memo to the select board about this issue, and I'll go through a little background, but it had some links, you know, for those of you who wanted to, and select board members who want to do a little more research and then gain a better understanding. So a cover memo to the select board, explaining the issue, which I'll explain to you, and a proposed letter to the Massachusetts legislature. We'll have to plug in the names and addresses of the representatives. I didn't have time to do that. But the issue is, I'm sure many of you have followed the news in the last week or so. Last Wednesday or so, the House Joint Committee on Telecommunications, Energy and Utilities voted favorably on House 4744, which is entitled An Act Relative to Energy Affordability, Clean Power, and Economic Competitiveness. And that awareness of the bill and the favorable vote triggered quite a lot of attention and pushback among climate and affordable housing advocates. I contemplated attaching to the memo a letter, which is also in the materials, from about 100 or so organizations who signed on to a letter opposing H 4744, particularly some of its provisions that serve to soften the state's climate goals, that cut the budget of Mass Save significantly, and some other provisions that have gotten a lot of scrutiny and criticism. As a result of the pushback, the House Ways and Means Committee announced recently, in the last few days, that it would not be taking up the bill. At Wednesday, I think it's supposed to take it up.
Sorry.
And so it looks like if this bill actually goes to the floor of the House, it won't be until early next year at the soonest. And so this pause provides the opportunity for additional comment to the legislature. There's one provision in the bill of particular possible concern to Brookline and to other fossil fuel free communities like us who are participating in the DOER demonstration project that the legislature created. And that is that the body of the text is in the memo if you want to look at that directly, but essentially it disqualifies projects in fossil fuel free communities from receiving Mass Save incentives that facilitate electrification of homes. And so, you know, this creates several inequities besides being contrary to the state's climate goals. And the fact that the state legislature created this program, mandated DOER to create it. A number of communities, more than there were spots for, applied. We were one of the accepted communities. There's a waiting list of communities who want to get into the program. The legislature created. You know, it's the measure it serves to penalize communities that have taken this leadership role in becoming fossil fuel free. You know, it undercuts what we've been talking about for quite some time of having the ability to focus on existing construction because thank goodness we are part of this fossil fuel free community, and therefore new construction should take care of itself. So besides that undercutting of these goals, there's inequity to section 94 because our community residents pay into Mass Save. And at the same time that they are paying like any other ratepayer around the state, they are being deprived of the benefits of Mass Save to help them electrify their homes. The other inequity is a little wrinkle that actually Lisa Cunningham identified, which is that we are a specialized code community. So as a specialized code community, any large multifamily housing defined as 5+ units, 12,000 square feet or more, has to be passive house. And there are incentives from Mass Save for passive house. You get special analysis support, technical support, potentially. To get those Mass Save passive house incentives, you have to have electric heat, you have to have electric cooling, heat, hot water heating, and clothes drying. And there are incentives for all of that. So the specialized communities that are building passive house, larger multifamily projects get the benefit of all of these rebates that we as a companion specialized community would not get under section 94. And then of course the third concern could be, given all of that, would developers look at other communities that are not fossil fuel free and that do have Mass Save rebates available to them for projects in lieu of Brookline and other fossil fuel communities. So this is a section that particularly hurts Brookline. I've talked to Representative Vitolo, I think Nick has as well. And he said it is appropriate for Brookline to weigh in on not so much general legislation, but if there is something specific to Brookline that is hurtful to Brookline, it is helpful for the town to point this out. So given all of this, for today's agenda, I put together this, again, cover memo to the select board with an accompanying letter that has to be finalized in terms of recipients, et cetera. But and an accompanying vote at the beginning of the memo, asking the select board to vote to submit a comment to the legislature in opposition to section 94. So those are all for your consideration as part of this agenda item.
Thank you, Ben.
Mhm.
And also thank you for raising the bar on the quality of the, and it's annoying because now we're gonna have to try and put together our stuff like this, but anyway.
Well, you're going to use Quad.
Yeah, but yours is properly formatted, so, at least that, right? Bill,
First of all, thanks. I've been reading, not deeply into this, but I've been trying to understand what the underlying basis is for why this is being introduced.
Did you see the footnote in the memo? with
I
the
have not had a
FAQ?
chance to read what,
Okay.
what can you point me to?
Yeah, so there's an endnote that quotes from the materials, the proponents of the bill put together.
Is this the question, why does the bill prevent?
Yes, and I'll just read you the last sentence, which kind of gets to the nub of their argument, which is, given that these new buildings and major renovations in these communities are required to be fossil fuel free, this provision aims to ensure Mass Save rebates are directed to developers who would not have otherwise electrified new building projects or major renovations in order to incentivize this behavior. So in other words, your communities have to do it anyway. We're gonna give the support that's available that your ratepayers have paid into to other.
So that's the specific
That's what they
piece
say.
of this.
That's the articulated version.
That piece of it.
This is from their packaging, their package.
we could speculate on other reasons.
Yeah, because there's more to the proposal than just this.
Yes. Well, there are other sections.
Yeah,
This is
and
section
the other just the underlying reason for this? Is it because federal funding is going to be reduced, therefore we can't pay for it, therefore we should cut back? Is it,
Is it a golden time for the utility companies to kind of get some of their asks taken care of? I mean, given all of this, so there could be a lot of reasons we can surmise that.
it was just an interesting sequence where we decided to move from 2040 to 2050 in our planning. And we had a number of reasons for it. And then along comes this, which has echoes of delay, holding off, like softening a little bit. And I wasn't clear, still not clear, whether the rationale for that was similar to our rationale. We don't need to answer right now, just thanks for that. Pointing me to that one specific piece.
And any other questions, concerns, comments? Kathleen, Vikram, do you have anything to say? No?
I've got a question. I understand all the stuff about the that you described. How does the bill as it was proposed affect decarbonization of existing buildings that does not fall into the major renovation category?
Well, so you're talking about within fossil fuel communities?
Well, we're in Brookline, we're looking at decarbonization plans, so I'd say within Brookline is would be my question.
So, mass save incentives
I think it affects the entire town.
yeah, I mean, anyone who would go for a heat pump today
So
is affected.
So then it's more than what state
Because
is
we're fossil fuel free.
In Europe, that is a good catch. So while the basis of this law, the language is around fossil fuel free, which affects major renovations, the impact would be across all buildings. Because if we don't get mass save rebates, we don't get.
It would be for, I think it's to draw, it's attacking rebates, use of rebates that drive,
The language is.
that drive projects covered by our bylaw. And our bylaw, to go to your question now, is triggered by new construction and major renovations.
Okay.
So it's the projects that would be required to be electrified by our bylaw.
Okay, so I mean, I guess maybe that just skimming over the letter, I had the impression that that it was just major construction.
It is. It says any new building construction
So
or major renovation program within a municipality that has been approved to participate in the municipal fossil fuel free demonstration program shall not be eligible to receive incentives. So
It's covered by our bylaw.
so it's
somebody
specifically.
just wants to put in a something in a small renovation, they can still.
Not covered by the bylaw. They can
Yeah.
put in a new gas.
And just so they can put, but they can also get mass save rebates.
Yeah.
It's covered, just make sure I understand. So I didn't read the details of this. So it's covered by the, whatever the bylaw is, it affects the new construction. Okay,
Projects mandated by the fossil fuel free bylaw.
so it
Don't get
has
rebates.
nothing to do with bylaws that might be passed in the future for like Birdie.
I mean, this is attacking the DOER participation firm, so they don't know exactly what's.
Okay. So in this, and I like this, and we could maybe have a little discussion about it. Patty has suggested motion language. And I quite like the idea of having suggested motions if we have stuff, because first of all, preparation, we can put together a good motion. But secondly, as people review the content and also the motion, they could say, I don't really want that motion, I want to tweak it, and you can do that thoughtfully as opposed to on the fly. So thank you for that. That's great.
I wonder if Michael, do you have
Thoughts?
we should see?
So first of all, I know you have talked to Representative Vitolo about this, and it would be good to share any feedback with the committee on that. Yeah, for me personally, as a select board member, I'm in support, and now it's just sort of has to wind its way through the political process. I am wondering, given the information about whether or not this thing is actually going to come out, whether there is going to be more information on that question that may influence the select board's decision?
I can answer maybe both of those questions. So, I mean, I don't know how the select board's going to respond, but. So I talked to Tommy twice. I talked to Tommy about this, but I also talked to Tommy following our last ask of the select board, which didn't go according to plan. And so some part of that first conversation was talking about the boundaries between state and like, what's going on in the state and what's going on in the town. We kind of came to a conclusion that the CF should be more focused on the town, which is consistent with the conversations we've had in the past. And so that sounds right. And that's why I think 4744 fits the bill. So the conversations I had with Tony specifically about the bill, very similar to what Patty said. He was Representative Rotolo. He said that it might be a good idea for Ziad to take this up and vote on it. And then after it was decided that it wasn't going to be taken up now, and it was going to be taken up in January, I think both Patty and I had a very specific conversation with Tommy about whether we should do something along these lines, and he said yes.
Okay.
So very specifically, yes.
Okay. Okay, well then, carry on. That's I'm not gonna hold.
Okay. So Patty, do you want to do the honors?
Okay, here is the proposed language. Voted that Ziad recommends to the select board that it submit a letter to the town's elected state legislators before the end of calendar year 2025 in opposition to section 94 of H 4744.
I would like to second it. I have a question, which is, since you have provided a draft, do you want to amend the motion to suggest that they follow the draft, or should we just leave it as that?
I suggest that we leave it as is and just attach the memo
Great.
and the cover letter.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Michael,
Yes,
from your point of view?
Yes, then I second it. All in favor, starting with government.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Vikram,
Aye.
Kathleen,
Aye.
one.
I have one other question. Who is going to present this to the city?
I mean, I can,
If that's, how does it normally happen? Alexander?
but do you think Nick should be there or the official?
I'm happy to be there, but I'd like to be better if you present.
What do you think, Michael? Alexandra?
I was just gonna say that sometimes staff bring it forward or sometimes a member of the body that's requesting it brings it forward. So I think it just depends on availability and interest.
I think we haven't had a lot of time in front of the select board, and I think it'd be nice for us to do that. So if you're willing to do it, Patty, that'd be great.
Yeah,
It also,
it just has to be before I go to the law office.
they're, sometimes they put these things on not on the discussion agenda, just
The consent
on the
agenda?
consent agenda. And so it's just an up or down vote. There is no presentation or discussion beforehand. So in that case, depending on where it landed on the agenda, you may not need to present anything or do anything at the meeting.
Great.
When are you leaving?
December 16th.
Okay, so there's the next meeting of the select board is December 2nd.
And who would, just sustainability has to,
Yep, I'll get it on the agenda.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Patty. Next up,
Could you CC me when you send that information in?
Yes.
I'll give you materials.
presentation and discussion of Green Communities FY25 annual report.
That's me again.
Excellent.
Thank you for this opportunity. So I wanted to give a little history just about the Green Communities program and our participation in it, and our recent submittal of the FY25 annual report. So just as a reminder, the Green Communities program, they have certain requirements for communities to become a green community. The first two have to do with renewable energy. The first requires that a community pass, designate certain areas for as of right siting of renewable energy projects, and they can be generation projects, they can be research projects, they can be, all different kinds of projects. But you need to have designated certain areas within your municipality to do that. And then the second criteria requires that you also adopt expedited permitting. So that within a year, should a developer pursue a renewable energy project, that it gets either a thumbs up or a thumbs down within the year, so that projects don't linger. The third criteria to become a green community is that your community needs to figure out what your energy use is and establish a baseline for that, and then adopt an energy reduction plan, which becomes sort of a living document over time, that demonstrates that you are making efforts to reduce your energy use by 20% over 5 years. The fourth criteria is that the community be committed to replacing its vehicles with energy efficient vehicles over time, and there are certain minimum miles per gallon standards for different kinds of vehicles. And then the fifth requirement is that your community adopt the stretch energy code, with the understanding that newly constructed buildings will be held to a higher standard. So now, thank you very much. So Brookline did that. Brookline's one of many communities that have done that. At this point, I think, I should have looked up the number and I forgot to do that, but close to 300 of the 351 communities in Massachusetts are now green communities. Brookline was among the first, but at this point, it's become fairly common. And we do have this requirement now that we submit an annual report. And I know this committee is about emissions, not necessarily energy use, but there is obviously a correlation between the two. And the Green Communities Report is really about energy use. It's not about emissions. But we are required to submit an annual report on time to maintain our eligibility for grants through the Green Communities Program. And also, now that we're seeking climate leader community designation, we have to be current for that as well. The report really asks about a lot of things, or, all the things that you have to do to become a green community. I'll focus though primarily on the energy piece of it. We need to report our energy use each year. And some of our energy use is automatically uploaded by the utilities. We always have to look at it because sometimes there are errors or there are adjustments that need to be made, or the information's somewhat incomplete. But we also need to manually enter the data for any kind of delivered fuels or renewable energy. So, we have to upload information about any gasoline that the vehicles use, any diesel vehicles might use, for example, or any solar generation. So if you can go to the next slide. As a reminder, Brookline became designated as a green community in July of 2011. And at the time, we selected a baseline year of fiscal year 2009. And at the time in 2009, Brookline had 40 municipal facilities that were in the database, containing just under 2 million square feet. Currently, in this past fiscal year, we identified 43 facilities, because the town has subsequently built 22 Tappan Street, which is the part of Brookline High School, and acquired 2 buildings from Newbury College. And in addition to that, some of our buildings have grown over time because there have been additions made or replacement buildings. So Driscoll is bigger than the old Driscoll was, for example, or we had previously mentioned the fact that the new STEM wing of Brookline High School makes it a bigger building than it used to be. And the reason why I bring that up is because in the annual report, there is a mechanism. It's not a perfect mechanism, but there is a mechanism that said, if you had 40 buildings, even though you now have 43 buildings, you just need to compare 40 to 40. It also makes an adjustment that says if a building has grown in size, we'll make an adjustment to compare it to what its prior size was. It's not a perfect tool, but it does make a building stock change adjustment.
But that's not actually in here somewhere. Is that in the data behind it?
I'm sorry,
This is quite a short report, right? It's only 5 pages or something.
the
Slide deck.
What we're looking at, this is, okay, the report is much, we don't
The
have.
report is much more robust and it's online in a reporting platform that you have, it's limited access to that. So we pulled out pieces from that report, but the report itself is quite cumbersome.
on the vehicle side, the reporting for how vehicles are tracked has changed tremendously over over the last 15 years or so. I realize there's a wrong number in there. The town owns around 360 vehicles, not 160 vehicles. I should have thought that. Of which, approximately 28 of them are fully electric vehicles. Most of our fully electric vehicles are light duty vehicles, but we do have, in fact, a trash collection vehicle that's fully electric. Each year we need to document what are the new vehicles, which vehicles have been retired, have there been any trades between departments and all sorts of stuff. So this is sort of a very quick summary of where we were and where we are. The blue line is where we were, and the orange line is where we are. You can see, regrettably, we're not showing that we've saved energy over time.
This includes the new buildings, right?
What?
This includes the new
No,
buildings.
this does not include new buildings.
So it says buildings with building stock changes.
It should be building, yes, it does say with building stock change. It means the opposite of that. Sorry. So it's adjusted for building stock
The
changes.
adjustment is to reduce the number to only the 40. That's the adjustment.
Oh,
So for example, the Newbury College buildings are not in these numbers, and Tappan Street is not in 22 Tappan Street is
it's
not
the
in these.
additional square footage of buildings which have grown in these numbers.
No, but the reason why I said it's an imperfect tool is that, for example, and this is really the prime example of this, is Brookline High School is about 10% larger than it used to be, with the new STEM wing. But so we make an adjustment on Brookline High School's energy use, but the heating for Brookline High School shows up in the UAV. Because the heating plant for Brookline High School is in the Unified Arts Building. And this report doesn't allow us to tweak the Unified Arts Building's heat.
Yeah.
So it's an imperfect tool. And that's something that we need, I have it on my list to talk to DOER about how do we deal with the fact that the heating plant for a building is in another building, and we're adjusting Brookline High School, but we can't adjust the heating plant at UAB.
It does feel actually like the wrong metric. Metric should probably be amount of energy used per square foot. So it feels like the problem you have here is that the metrics are just not good metrics.
Mhm.
And by the way, that's not a criticism, obviously, of you. It's not a good measure because
Well, at a minimum, it seems to me that, obviously, it's the purpose of it is to try to manage these things. So you don't get individual buildings, you have to have all the detail. But in terms of just presenting to the public, the energy use EUI, it seems like would be the obvious thing instead of using their approach, which is looking at these 40 buildings that I'm trying to figure out. So, but to just take, you have already total energy use and you have the increase, you have the total square footage. And it'd be very simple to just have a graph that says, what is our total EUI? Is it going up or going down?
That would be for building. What's the EUI for a car?
No, I'm just saying,
but just on the building side, yeah. But you could actually do the same thing with cars where you said like, energy expenditure per mile driven or something else, some usage-based thing, because if the cars are driving 5 times as far and the energy rate goes up by 1, which like it's just.
Except that we don't track mileage,
I
but you're right, you're
Just,
right.
the metrics aren't very good, which is not a criticism.
No, I hear you, and, I mean, that's not what the report asked for, but I could pull together EUI comparisons, and
And I wouldn't ask you to do it in detail at all, just a big total would be very interesting.
no, I think that's a very good suggestion, actually, but I didn't think to do it. So I appreciate the suggestion.
Go ahead, Bill.
Couple of questions on this slide, but I want to make sure we weren't, are there more things to say about that one topic before? No, okay. Street traffic lights, is this the period of time where things would have been swapped for LEDs or would that have happened before then?
No, I mean, that's one of those success stories, right? Where, we're doing about the same amount of street lighting, but we're doing it much more efficiently.
It's surprising to me that it's not a more dramatic drop, but it is what it is.
Well, there were, even going back into 2012-ish, and so we were converting to LEDs on traffic lights and things like that.
This is 2009, so I agree. I'm surprised it's not as much. Are we doing a second round of lighting where we're actually dimming the lights a little bit? Is that, did I hear that? 'Cause I would really like that, but I don't know if that's happening.
Yes, we were piloting that. Yes.
Could you pilot outside my house? Please?
We actually, I can offer you a little bit more on that, but we've started the pilot in kind of some residential areas in South Brookline, but the dimming actually that we've done is you can dim a light and it's like almost 50% and it's not visible. That dimming is not visible to the human eye down at the ground level. Which when I found that out, I was like, why don't we all do that all the time? So the question is, if that's our baseline or if we're going to dim further, that may, affect the visibility at what you can see as a pedestrian or driver. Obviously that breaks into safety questions as was heavily discussed last night at town meeting, but little joke. So that is part of the consideration of if we dim further than that.
Just historically, if you remember, like maybe as much as 20 years ago, when the first federal money came out to start doing these things, DPW talked about streetlights, but the Select Board Climate Action Committee could not get them to commit to not making the lights brighter.
Well, we're definitely trying to go the other way.
I know what I'm saying, because
yeah.
the history is that this is a long, tough battles, as was discussed last night. People go, LEDs, this is great. I can spend the same amount of money, I can make everything 10 times as bright.
That one in particular struck me as being odd enough that if I were like doing this, I'd be looking into the numbers of them because I would expect a much more dramatic drop.
Well, on a percentage basis, though, it seems like it's the largest,
50%,
it's the largest number.
It is, but it
Yeah.
should be,
90%.
it should be 90% less.
No, I don't know any community that achieved more than like maybe 35. Well, I certainly don't know all the
Okay.
communities.
Well, that can't be all.
From my experience of looking at 4 different communities, if they achieve the 35-40% savings that you achieve.
The thing is, if you look at, I think you're thinking about incandescent versus LED.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know how, where these numbers come from for the street and traffic lights, but when I did the greenhouse gas inventory in 2008, only a small fraction of lights were metered. And the numbers came from the electric company who told you,
Correct.
this is how much.
I see.
That is still the case.
So who knows?
Yeah. New question, open space, what open space uses BTUs and why?
So, open space includes, the cemetery, the golf course, and the skating rink.
And the skating rink. Okay.
Which uses energy to operate the building.
They went up.
Yeah, cemetery, I'm still having trouble.
Yes,
Cemetery uses oil, heating oil, to,
There's a building down there.
yes.
Oh, okay, I was
Delivered.
just trying to.
There are multiple buildings there, actually, yes.
I see.
and I guess the other qualification that I will put in, is that over the years, there've been multiple people who have entered this information and looked at this information and verified this information or not, and, we're comparing against a baseline that I don't know if the baseline was really right.
Yeah,
Now,
right.
I will also say I'm pretty confident that the FY 25 numbers are pretty accurate. But
I'm gonna interject.
I could, what?
I'm gonna interject for just a second. Shelley's being very modest. This has bounced around. The responsibility of doing this has bounced around from department to department. In some cases, it was gotta get it in so we can keep our status, row whatever will stick against the wall and keep moving. So we've had years with, I would say, subpar data and did it enough to check the box. This has now moved into the Sustainability and Natural Resources Division, and Shelley has spent hundreds of hours cleaning up this data for FY 25. So what that means is moving forward, we have a much more accurate portfolio to look at for FY 25. I almost wish we could use FY 25 as our baseline year instead of FY 2009, and certainly not compared to some of the previous years. So I think that part of what, and I would guess, I don't know this for certain, but I would guess those of you who've been involved in ZAB and or climate action groups in Brookline for some time haven't ever seen this report before, haven't seen this information before. And so I think what could be helpful is for this to be a regular occurrence every year at ZAB, for ZAB to see this information consistently and change over time. And for us to be able to do a little bit more analysis on the trends and changes as we get more information. Because I think that we have been missing some opportunities but not missing opportunities, but there are opportunities for us to utilize being part of this program to get state money to help us do some of the work we want to do, but it's hard to do that without the accurate picture.
I have a question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
How long is the actual report?
It's online.
I was just looking for it. It's on the state website?
Well,
Where is it?
no. So it's through DOER, but they have a reporting platform called MEI
Yes.
Math Energy Insight, and that is something that I don't believe that the public can access Math Energy Insight. It's
Is there any
only
way to print out the report for us to read in full
maybe
and scan?
How much paper would that? be?
Yeah, I mean, I think,
I mean, it's scanned.
there are some sections of the report which, for example, the vehicle inventory, like, do you want a list of 360 or more vehicles or energy conservation measures? Do you want like there are, I don't know, there's something like 15 pages. When I printed it out, I was horrified. It was like 15 pages at 11 by 17 of all of the energy conservation measures that have been listed in the report.
Is there an executive summary?
I mean, there are some pieces, and certainly the energy pieces of it
Mhm.
are not as great, as tedious to look through.
So I don't want to, I want to be clear, we're not trying to be not transparent with the information, we're actually trying to be the
Yeah,
opposite of that by bringing it forward. So what I would suggest is, we have a couple other graphs to show here, and so I think if Shelley walks through those, and then at the end, some of the pieces, like, we would really like to see EUI, or we would really like to see this, we can go in and extrapolate some of those pieces, rather than giving you a raw data report of everything, to try to bring together some consistent summary analysis, because that's one of our questions is, what analysis, what information would you like to see, so that we can create that and then continue to build off of that for future years.
Continue.
Okay, great. So I think, so the next report just, because renewable energy is obviously an important part of reducing, both, it's not actually reducing energy use, but reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. I did also want to just sort of demonstrate our growth in renewable and reliance on renewable energy. And our renewable energy is all wired to be behind the meter. So it's all energy that we're using ourselves. We do have and the reason why it says energy use as opposed to energy production is we do have, I think it's actually only at the MSC, we do actually run into a situation over the summer where we actually net meter a little bit. So we do produce a little bit more energy for 1 or 2 months that we sell back to the grid. So then I make the adjustment and I say, well, I know we said, I'm making up numbers, we produced, 1,000 kilowatt hours, but 10 of them were in excess. So I'm only going to report 9,900 of them in this report. So, but it's quite a obviously significant increase once the 5 buildings that were part, the first few buildings are the 2 smaller legacy town-owned solar arrays on the health building and on the cover and library, branch library. And then the other buildings, once you start seeing the growth, it's because the other 5 buildings got solar.
Is FY25 incomplete?
No, it's complete. I think it wasn't a sunny a year.
June 30th.
June 30th.
I'm not sure yet.
This information is through June
Oh,
30th.
so it's the complete fiscal year.
Yes,
report.
it is. Yes,
And the drop is because it was a cloudier year?
I think it was a cloudier year.
Wow, interesting.
So. So now I switch to emissions and, so emissions, so while I have the capability on the energy side to make that adjustment change based on building stock changes, I don't have that ability in these reports to do the same on emissions. So when I compare, and you'll see in the future, the next couple of slides, when I compare FY 2009 emissions to FY 2025 emissions, I'm comparing, what was it, 40 buildings compared to 43 buildings, and I'm comparing, a smaller high school to a bigger high school. And that's just because that's the way the data is set up. So, so for FY 25, I just wanted to show you on the municipal side that, approximately 3/4 of the emissions are based on buildings use. Another large chunk is obviously vehicles, then street lights and traffic lights, and then open space and really a minuscule amount based on water and sewer.
I think Blue Stripe did calendar year 2023. I know it was 2023. I don't know, it's calendar year, fiscal year. It would be interesting to see how these numbers compare.
Yeah, that's a good point, Alan, and it's definitely on the list of, we just submitted this report. This is like the royal we. Shelley did all this work. Shelley just submitted this report about a week ago. So this is hot off the presses, but one of the things that I would like to do is, as we're going through the next iteration of the climate action plan, is to look at the greenhouse gas inventory there compared to what we're able to
Also
extrapolate.
also look at what they use for emission factors.
Mhm,
See if they're
mhm.
different.
So I actually can do that. I mean, I can change it to calendar year. I didn't, we report everything in MEI in fiscal year, so I didn't make that change, but I can certainly do that. So now again, this is emissions over that period of time. And again, I'm comparing like a smaller, fewer buildings to more buildings, and I'm comparing smaller buildings to bigger buildings. So just, the stars are kind of when the biggest changes in terms of building stock kind of came online. But let me start by saying, okay, so you see the gray line, which is the third or fourth line up from the bottom, and you see that dip. So that's vehicle fuel use.
It didn't drive it.
I would guess that the information for FY 2016 is incomplete. Like, I don't think we suddenly that year stopped driving. I don't have any way of knowing that, but my guess is that that information for that year is not accurate. And that obviously ripples up to the top line, which is total energy, total emissions. But in general, you can see a somewhat downward trend in emissions over time, over those 16 years.
Do you know how much of that is because the emission factor for electricity got lower?
Yeah, no, I don't know that exactly, but the next slide I think it might be the next slide.
Okay.
Might sort of show
Got
that.
it, okay.
Oh, yeah. So what I did, so now what this doesn't do is this doesn't separate out emissions factor from usage.
Right.
But what it shows is that on the electricity side, it's a very clear downward trend for emissions over time. Again, I'll point out all the imperfections that I know about, just because that's the way I go through life. But that's a bigger statement, actually. I shouldn't have said that in public, but
Remember, these things are recorded. Well, I don't think we should record all these meetings.
But FY 20, you see that from FY 2024 to FY 2025 that there's an increase. I know that the information for FY 2024 is not complete. That we caught a problem with the information in FY 2024, and it hasn't been complete. It hasn't been corrected yet. And what it was that a combination of Eversource changed all the account numbers.
Yeah.
And when they did that, and you had a new account, they started to record the new account number as of June 2024. Even though the new account could have opened in January of 2024. And I caught that because we said there are these 33 new accounts. We had a new streetlight installed. We had a new, whatever. There were some new accounts. And miraculously, for all 33 of them, their data started in June. And I was like, what's the likelihood that all 33 accounts started in June? And when I asked about it, we realized that there was a reporting error on the part of Eversource. And we've asked Eversource to correct it, but it hasn't happened yet. So I'm not sure that there really is a dip in 2024 or that there is a growth from 2024 to 20, that slight upward line it won't be as steep as it is currently shown.
I don't think you should worry about it too much. I mean, I think the point Alexandra made is that we haven't done a great job of this in the past. And comparing good data to bad data is not, I mean, we have to do it here, but I wouldn't take it on, I would just make sure it's good going forward. That's what we should base it on.
I think the reason why it particularly threw me
Mm.
is that the Driscoll School is one of the accounts that, it just started showing new data in June of 2024, but the Driscoll School was open several months earlier. And I was like, there seems to be some missing information here. And it wasn't caught because the old electric account was still showing a little usage. So there wasn't like no usage. So it didn't sort of jump out, but once you started really digging into it, you realized that there was a problem. So anyway,
I guess the most interesting thing that I see in the chart is the fact that there's a pretty steady decline until 2019, and then obviously COVID happened and then it went back up.
and
And has not yet bumped back. And I'm wondering, is that AI? Is that is that more just online usage? Is that more people staying at home with their lights on?
so what I
Oh, it's municipal operations.
This is all municipal operations, right? So
Yeah.
so I don't know that I'll ever know
Yeah.
the exact answer, but what I would say is, first of all, it did coincide with there being more buildings. And it did coincide with there being bigger buildings about the same time. You know, this is about the same time that 22 Tappan Street came online. This is about the time that Brookline High School's addition came online. So that's part of it. I would also speculate, and this is based not because I know what happened in Brookline, but because I know what happened elsewhere. You know, at other places, I was working in Quincy, and this is what happened in Quincy. We started ventilating a lot more after COVID, which means more fans were going, more higher levels of air conditioning were going. You know, we just didn't know what to do. You know, the advisory was that we needed to ventilate more. And so electricity use grew.
There's also schools that didn't have AC that now have AC. And I know that because my kids had schools without AC, so.
That's true. In your kid's school, though, it's
Mhm.
air source heat.
But it didn't have, there were schools without cooling.
Yes, yes, for sure. And there still are.
Right.
And I suspect it's not one thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's probably many, many things, but there are, you know, and I wouldn't be able to speculate, you know, 10% of it is due to this or 50% of it is due to that, but you know, there are a number of things that.
It would be another metric to throw in though, is like, it's not an apples to oranges comparison, even if you're counting square footage. Because if you were not previously cooling a building and now you are cooling a building, and you're not measuring it against the average temperature over a period of time, then the data is not even interesting. It doesn't help you at all, because you don't know what you're comparing it against. So we definitely.
Well, no, I disagree a little on that. First of all, it strikes me if what we're going to do is look at a trend, because I think what Michael pointed out is very important. This is where, in the case of building, using EUI is important because it normalizes out the floor area. And if based on EUI, you see a spike at some certain time, you can at least make an attempt to identify the cause, because if it turns out we're going to now air condition 3 other schools, we can just be aware of the effect if for automobiles, vehicle miles traveled or something. But the other thing that comes in, it drives you crazy. I wouldn't suggest we do it. Some years are hotter than others. Okay, so you can go and you can do all sorts of adjustments. I don't think it's worth doing them, but I think you know, I don't think it's a bad thing to try to identify if there's a significant event, if it's, you know, it changes things.
Yeah. We are 5 minutes past, 6 minutes past this
Okay,
agenda item.
so I have one more slide. which is just, you know, so we showed, you know, what's happening on the electric side, and then I wanted to show what was happening on the non-electric side, sort of the fossil fuels that we use. Where the picture is not nearly as promising or as terrific, right? You know, again, you see that dip in 2016 on the gray line where I think the vehicle information is incomplete, and therefore it translates up into the total line, which is the blue line. But you know, what you see is, you know, building energy, use of fossil fuels has grown. And you see, vehicle use of fossil fuels has actually dipped a little bit from where it was. You know, as more vehicles are now using electric, and maybe the vehicle stock has changed over the 16 years. I don't know. And maybe the number of miles, you know, traveled has changed. That I don't know. But you can see that our fossil fuel use attributable to vehicles has dipped. And also that open spaces remain more or less the same.
It looks like for buildings, the electricity use went up 2021 versus 2020. There's an increase. And fossil fuel emissions for buildings, same year, there's a big jump up. Is that well, just an observation, I guess, at this point. I assume it has something to do with the operation, because I know certainly for natural gas, our condo uses it's 240 units, and our gas use over the last several years has been going steadily down because the winters have been warmer and warmer. So I suspect this has something to do with the physical, some change in.
Well, buildings were closed for the most part in 21, right?
What?
Weren't a lot of buildings closed in 21? The pandemic?
It seems inconsistent,
What?
Yeah,
doesn't it?
yeah, they can go back to 18.
So I'm saying going to 21 to 22. would have-
Yeah,
would have
you're
gone
right.
up.
Yeah.
Isn't that what you're asking? You're wondering why?
Well,
it's 21 to
I
22?
said 21 because I saw the big dip. You're correct.
It's somewhere in there is a
It could be
pandemic.
that, but
Right,
it's-
right.
Yeah.
The pandemic is, you know,
It
it's,
saved
I
a
don't
lot of
know
energy.
exactly how many months schools were closed, and certainly when schools reopened, you know, again, much higher, and not only schools, but any public building, much higher levels of ventilation, which not only affect electricity use, but that's fossil fuel use. You know, it was driving me insane, you know, watching these numbers.
But it feels like an anomaly there that is explained some other way.
Yeah, I actually, as I look at it now, I guess I would say 20. It was still high in 22. And then it went down in 23 and 24. So we're past it, so it doesn't matter.
I think the variability of the data, and Alexander's comment about the quality of the data, means that agonizing over the data, probably not the best to survive that.
Yeah.
But so first of all, I just want to, again, really applaud Shelley's work and efforts to pull all this together for FY 25. I do feel very confident that we have a much better and more accurate picture now for our most recent reporting year, which is very exciting. And so thank you. But I think the second piece, and we don't have to get into this now because I know we're behind, but I would like us staff to hear from you, Zia, what pieces of information would be most helpful for you to see from on an annual basis that hopefully we can extrapolate from this report so that we can continue to prepare that information and share it with you, but two, so that we're consistently monitoring and kind of asking the same questions as we move forward.
Why wouldn't you want that?
It doesn't have to be now. It can be next month, next
Like Q2.
Q2 of 2026.
Yeah. When do you want it?
I mean, I think it depends on when do you want, if you want different information about the FY 25 data, then whatever you want the FY 25 data. But if not, then I would say for next year, then before October of 2026.
Let's do
Q1 next year, we'll try and put something together.
I mean, the truth is that the data that gets collected to a large extent is the same, though the vehicle information has changed radically. But other than that, the other energy use information has, it's all in this huge database. And the question is like, so what do you want to see about it? And, it didn't occur to me, quite frankly, to look at EU, to present UI, but that's, I'll have to think about it, but I don't actually think that's going to be hard for me to do. So I'm happy to.
That'd be great. We're gonna move on. We're now 11 minutes behind. And you guys have time to eat?
Yeah.
So the next item on the agenda is update from the Municipal Solar Financial Working Group. Oh, actually, thank you, Shelley. Before we move on, thank you very much.
You're right.
Presentation from Municipal Solar Financial Working Group, which I presume is being given by the group. Is that correct?
Yes. Vikram, do you want us to pull up the slides and share?
Sure, that would be great. So I think you all are already quite familiar with a number of things that were included in this presentation. So this is a presentation we put together that was shared Monday with the Futures Subcommittee that is headed by Bernard Green, and I think Sergio is a member, and then a couple other folks attended that meeting on Monday. Given that this is quite a long presentation, I may just Alexandra, let's maybe just focus on 3 or 4 slides for our purpose today. So what we did as part of this analysis was I think the next slide is, So maybe we start from here, and some of this information you have seen earlier is currently, as projected, the town is scheduled to spend about $3.5 million in electricity in the next financial year. That roughly translates into consuming somewhere around 13 million kilowatt hours. And of course, I think prices are rising, as we all know. So if we project based on the historical inflation rate of about 3% in electricity prices, the town may end up paying close to over $100 million for electricity in the next couple of decades. But when you look at what the U.S. Energy Information Administration is projecting, they are projecting anywhere from 4 to 6% annual inflation in the upcoming years, primarily driven by data centers and AI. Right. So maybe going to the next slide. So what maybe we go next. I think you already are familiar with the Driscoll School analysis. So maybe we keep going. Sorry, one slide prior to this, the 9th. Yeah. So what we started our analysis, we are recommending that Brookline consider installing solar panel systems and or batteries across as many municipally owned buildings as are feasible, as many parking lots that provide us with the right economics, and other open spaces where solar panels can be installed either as a ground mount or as a carport or a canopy system. And basically what we are also recommending is that we contract all these available sites in one contract to achieve economies of scale. So we did some preliminary analysis. We worked with a software provider called Station A. They're based out of San Francisco. They were originally a company owned by NRG, one of the biggest energy producers in the country. So that technology came out of NRG. They spun it off, and now they're an independent company. So we worked with them to evaluate roughly 70, maybe go to the next slide, We roughly looked at 70 or so town-owned buildings, 15 town parking lots, 5 parking lots at schools, and we also looked at the town transfer station and Skyline Park area. And to estimate what kind of solar installations can these sites achieve and what would be the economics of those. So for our analysis for right now, we are assuming that we will not qualify for investment tax credit, the federal investment tax credit, which is at least 30% and can be as high as 50% if domestically manufactured equipment is used. So based on the initial analysis, what we found, and again, this is very preliminary, folks. There are huge margin of errors around this. This was all done using satellite imagery. In solar, satellite is a great start, but it does not replace the need for walking around and doing site analyses in person. So keep that in mind, please. So what we found was that the town potentially could install about 9 megawatts of solar panels on the sites that we identified, about 2 megawatts on about 15 or so buildings, about 6 megawatts at the transfer station and the non-recreational and open space at Skyline Park, and about 1.2 megawatts at the town's parking lots as solar canopies. So that totals to be about 9 megawatts, which would generate over 90% of our current electricity use. So that is if all these identified sites. So if we go to the next slide, assuming what we did with Driscoll, that basically the town will invest and own these systems versus signing a PPA. When we do an initial cost benefit analysis, here's a result. And my apologies, very dense slide. So let's go slow on this one. This is the meat of the presentation. So if you look at the first column is where the systems are being installed, how many solar panels can be installed, what kind of output can be produced, what would be the cost to install, total system cost, what would be the annual savings, lifetime savings, and if that initial investment was funded by a 10-year 3.5% bond, for example, or a loan, what would be the annual loan payments that we could see. So in summary, I'll start with the summary. If we were to install solar on all these locations, the total investment would be about $25 million, with lifetime savings net of initial investments of the 25 million would be about $40 million. So roughly we'll save about $65 million worth of electricity through these systems, right? In terms of annual cash flow, it seems like we will be breaking even. So annual savings to start would be about $3 million. This is the year one, but as prices rise, our savings will increase, and our annual loan payments would be about $3 million. So it's pretty break even to start. Of course, once the loan is paid off, the savings increases dramatically, right? But what the estimate is that these are initial numbers, and if we are able to negotiate, do an RFP, competitive bidding, we should be able to do much better pricing than what is being estimated here. And secondly, if we can move fast and complete some of these projects, all of these may not be able to be completed by the end of December 31st, 2027, we might still be able to qualify for the investment tax credit. So that would, of course, dramatically improve the economics. In addition to the financial numbers, the town would save approximately 4,500 metric tons, or 50% of town's total emissions. It is equivalent of planting 20,000 trees annually, or taking 1,000 cars off the road every year. And I think one thing that I really like about this kind of a project is, as part of CARP, the town is asking our residents and our businesses to invest in mitigation, right? Make big investments, take the necessary steps. This is a great way for the town to show that we can eat our own spinach, right? So these are hard projects. I think that's one thing is this project is not going to be easy. There are dozens of reasons for not doing it. And we'll talk about them in a few minutes. But it will take a lot of resolve and commitment from the select board, from the different stakeholders and the powers to be to push something like this through. And we may not be able to do 100% of what is being suggested here, maybe a fraction of this or whatever percentage of this. But the moral of the story, I think, is there's an opportunity here to both make a financial difference and climate mitigation. Right? Some of this analysis, as I mentioned, it's very preliminary, a lot of uncertainties, open questions, and things that we need to do. Just as I said, this is a satellite-driven analysis. The next step would be to work with experts to do site survey, site analysis, make sure that we can do these kind of installations. Because this is a pretty large portion of this installation that we are suggesting would be what they call front of the meter installation, which is there is no building that is consuming power next to where the projects are being installed. So we would have to work on what are the net metering rules around that for municipal buildings. We believe in it, based on initial review, there are very generous allowances for municipally owned solar projects. So it should all work in our favor, but of course needs confirmation. We want to make sure that the grid is able to accept all these solar installations that will be installed. Doing a preliminary analysis, it looks like there is enough capacity in the Brookline area for almost all of this solar to be incorporated in the grid. But again, still, we have not talked to Eversource right now, but looked at their database. We still need to determine what roofs may have to be replaced or may have to be reinforced before solar can be installed and what the cost of that likely be. There would be public review process for any kind of carports and ground mount systems. We can easily see members of the community, a lot of folks may not be happy with things like this. So of course that has to be addressed. And then for the transfer station and Skyline Park, we understand that's a town dump which has been capped. So initially we have looked at that we would do these installations as a ballast system that does not require penetrating the ground, so as not to disturb the. But again, site surveys would be needed to make sure that can be done. So I'll stop here. And Alexandra, did I miss anything?
No, I think that's it. So this was presented to the what's called the Future Subcommittee of the Expenditure and Revenue Committee on Monday. And there was some discussion at that subcommittee, and it was determined, that there was interest, and that, kind of next steps would be figuring out what a more phased approach might look like, particularly. And then addressing some of those kind of, outstanding questions and to-dos. So I just figured that Ziad would want to, hear what the others are hearing and ask any questions. So I'll leave it at that.
I think Patty.
Could you put the last slide on?
Yeah. I'm saying yes, but it's Rebecca.
Thank you. Vikram, I was just curious if you had looked or are aware of any provisions in House 4744 regarding the second bullet item on net metering. I think there was some language in House 4744? I think more about kind of larger projects. I don't know if it affects municipal. Shelley, do you know?
I think well, I saw an earlier version of it. I didn't follow the bill once it got amended. But an earlier version of it increased the net metering cap for municipalities.
Okay.
That currently there's a 10 megawatt cap.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what it increased it to. I
I
actually
think it's
thought,
20.
yeah, I was gonna say
I
20.
think it's still
I
20.
actually thought that was like the only provision in the bill that I thought was positive. But that's my personal opinion.
And then my second question was about the fourth bullet and the grid capacity. And if, I guess this is all kind of a little bit top secret as between the utilities and everyone else in the world. But I mean, is there a sense of, are we going to approach now, if there's sufficient capacity now and going forward, where does that?
Yes, so Patty, we looked at a database that Eversource provides to the community and looked at transfer stations close to Skyline Park and the transfer station. And the good news there is plenty of capacity. I think what I saw was there's about 50 megawatts of capacity at that that junction box. And there are no projects right now. Of course, we would know if there were any other large projects that were in the queue, and there are none. So again, I don't know if that is rule of law, if that database is as precise as it should be, but at least the first look was positive.
Bill, which ties into one of my questions. If you needed to invest more in infrastructure to get the electricity from the panels onto the grid, is that up to the town or does Eversource take care of that?
No, it's up to the town.
It's up to the town. So we would have to
It could add few $100,000 to each location. So if we were to do, let's say, 3 megawatts at the Skyline Park, let's say, and there was no infrastructure, the initial estimate that I got was about 300,000.
And that's built into your cost estimates?
Correct. Not, again, no, it is not built in.
Because I saw that much lower per kilowatt price.
The ground mount at this scale become cheaper. So solar is all about scale.
But that lower price does not take into account potential infrastructure investment.
No, that one does not.
But some just pay attention to.
Yes.
Do we have battery capacity now or in the plans? You mentioned it a couple times in the presentation. But do we have any large storage batteries anywhere?
No, we did not include that in our analysis right now because we don't have interval level data as yet. That is one of the next steps to study.
Okay.
See what kind of impact what kind of economics we could deliver for to reduce our demand charges in our big buildings.
You mentioned batteries a couple of times, but you're not actually incorporating batteries into what you're.
Not in this analysis. The next stage of the analysis, we would.
Quick, I mean, I should have started by saying this is pretty amazing and good work, and you put a lot into this. It's terrific. Third question. Do you know if it's ever been the case where a municipality might, let's say, rent roof space from a private owner?
Somebody else asked that question as well.
Has that ever been done? It seems we've got a lot of roof space.
Yeah. The answer is I don't know. Well, maybe Vikram has a different answer, but I'll say my answer is I don't know of a case where that has happened, and I think we would just have to look into, depending on how this was financed, whether or not we could use town bonded dollars to then put an asset on not a municipal building. But it's a good question.
I can picture all the problems associated with that, but on the other hand, there's like this available
For sure.
resource.
Yeah.
Roof space.
We need more roofs. So not more buildings, but we need more room. So it does make sense, but it's just a question of how it would work with municipality, but it's on the list of questions.
Interesting. Okay.
Bill, I think that would be if we could, and again, I don't know the answer to that either, but yeah, and somebody in the Futures Committee asked a similar question, is can we encourage our town's businesses and other commercial building owners to partner with us in this project so we can even increase a scope more? Almost like a solarize for commercial.
Yes,
Sorry, how did
that would be good.
I think Cambridge was talking about that idea.
A little more like community solar. In a way.
Well, using Cambridge roofs. Private, yeah, I mean, I don't know about ownership and so forth, but to provide community.
It could be interesting because when we did solarize, we had no success at all with getting commercial buildings to do it. But that's because you couldn't really approach them with any kind of a carrot. For instance, you talked, the Stop and Shop was a real possibility, never went anywhere. So it would be very hard, but there's at least a chance of doing it if the town takes the mission.
And rent space. And rent space. If you, then
Sorry if there was a question, I didn't hear it. I apologize.
I don't think so.
So, okay.
Some commentary back and forth there.
Great, thank you, Vikram. It's updated, I did regret this.
what is the next step? By whom and when?
So the working group, which includes Vikram, Nick, Michael, myself, and Sergio, who's the chair of the Futures Subcommittee, are meeting again to talk about, what the next iteration of this looks like. We did have the benefit of Chaz was on the presentation on Monday and offered some feedback during that time. So the next step is to meet with the working group again, think about what a phased approach to some of this would look like and how that changes or doesn't change the financial outlook, and then to present a more refined version of the analysis with more if we can, with more precise information to either some version of the expenditures and revenues subcommittee. It might be the futures, it might be the futures and the town committee. So that we're still waiting on kind of direction from them on. Because the other question is, it came through the expenditure and revenue committee because they are looking at, particularly the upcoming question about the upcoming override. And it was a question of, well, is that the tactic that we would utilize if we were to fund something like this?
Which then necessitates a certain timing for approval between select board, probably town meeting. Right?
Correct.
And I think that's and first.
So there's some,
Just to keep one thing in mind, I think timing is key here, folks. The economics is good, but it could be better if we could move fast. So the faster we can move and be ready to hit the road, come July 1st next year or whatever the date is, I think we may be able to deliver really excellent savings for the town.
we are 1 minute shy from adjourning, and the reason that we were going to adjourn early today was for town meeting. So I assume that everyone has, well, many people have a hard stop at 5:45. Is that right or wrong?
Coming starts at 7, but
I think we're gonna give Alexander at least 5 minutes.
Let's see if you can do it in 43 seconds. No, I'm just joking. 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm good until 6.
Okay, great.
Personally.
I'm gonna need to leave.
Alexandra, sustainability and natural division, resources division update.
So this, I will say while I'm pulling this up here, I just going back to the conversation about the Green Communities report really briefly. One of the things that our team is trying to do, and this is, very big picture, but we are really trying to herd the cats, and in this case, the cats are information that's floating out and about in a lot of different places. Gather that information and then use it to demonstrate impact over time. And so in fact, when we built our work plan as a team for this fiscal year, one of the things that I asked staff to do is really think about what is the impact of this particular item and how would we measure that impact. And so that will take time and will continue to grow, but I just bring that up to say that we know that for our division to be successful and to continue to exist, we have to demonstrate both impact and progress. And so we're looking for as many ways to do that help people understand both what Brookline has done and what Brookline is doing when it comes to sustainability and natural resources as possible. So just a high level note that I should have said during the Great Communities presentation. Okay, so very excited to share that Caroline Stott, did I say it right? Okay. Is our new energy advocate. She will be, this is the position that has been funded by the Community First Partnership Grant for 3 years. She'll be starting with us on December 1st. And has a strong background in previously worked at Elephant Energy and has a strong background in decarbonization and energy efficiency work. So excited to have her, and just want to thank Kathleen for serving on the hiring committee for that. And look forward to her working on certainly educating residents about Mass Save, Electrify Brookline, general home decarbonization, but supporting the work of the residential working group. I know we're tight on time, so I'm going to do my fast Alexandra talking. So Climate Action Resiliency Plan, thank you for all of you that have given input. Appreciate all of the discussion last meeting, really useful. Several we followed up with some more detailed written feedback. Just a reminder, if you haven't done that and you would like to do that, please make sure that it is to Rebecca and myself before by 1 week from today, just because we are trying to compile all of that to move us towards our next iteration, which will be in January. And that will be our first pass at the prioritization of the goals, strategies, and actions. We wanted to get those as close to final as we could. That will be available on the CARB website and shared with CF. Just a summary of our ongoing grant funded projects. We have our municipal vulnerability preparedness. That's our resilience grant that has kicked off. And we are currently seeking community members to serve on the core team that's guiding that project. Our Community First Partnership Grant, as you know, just mentioned, our energy advocate is starting on Monday, December 1st, so just a couple weeks. Municipal decarbonization roadmap. I took the liberty of hoping that you all would vote for it. You did, which is fantastic. So now we are seeking support from the school committee and select board in December for the inclusion of that in our climate leaders application. And then our mass clean energy curbside charging grant. Our final sites for that are Cypress Street, Freeman Street, Egmont Street. And I will say that we attended, this trio attended the Green Communities Conference yesterday, which I was on a panel there talking about EV infrastructure, and Mass CEC was there and talked about this grant program on the same panel. And they said that all the other communities that are participating are doing pedal mounted EV charging stations. And so the normal where they're in the ground, what you see everywhere, including out here at town hall. And we, because we're Brookline and we always like to be a little different, we are going to do pole mounted. So these are going to be on street lights to reduce the amount of infrastructure that's in the public right of way along the sidewalk. And they're excited to see how it works. And the transportation board will review those sites and finalize them at their meeting in December.
Who's the vendor?
They will be charge point stations.
Okay.
Yeah, they will be charge point stations. So just some updates on some capital projects. So Driscoll Rooftop Solar, we are coordinating the installation for that, which will be happening in likely 2026 at this point. I realized that this might not be common knowledge because I'm not sure how well it was advertised, but just so folks know, Fire Station 4, which is on Boylston Street, which is a fossil fuel free building, that construction is underway. Its anticipated completion is in summer of 2026. And following that, construction will begin shortly thereafter on Fire Station 1, which is at 140 Washington Street, and will be completed in 2027. So within the next 2 years, we'll have 2 updated fire stations, both of which will be fossil fuel-free buildings coming online. And then we have green spot charging stations. So those are the ones that the town doesn't own, that we're in a contractual agreement with Green Spot that owns and operates those. And they have level 3 DC fast charging stations along Beacon Street, but then they have level 2 stations at Fuller Street Lot and Kent Webster Street Lot. And so they came forward to us, and we're looking to raise the prices for both level 2 and level 3, but for the level 2 stations, quite a bit higher. And for a long time, we have heard plenty of community feedback of you inundated Fuller Street Lot with too many charging stations, and it's a problem. And it's clearly understandably, left people with bad taste in their mouth about charging stations. And so we said, how about instead of you increasing the rates, we ask you to reduce the number of stations so that you're running fewer and likely will get higher usage at those stations. At least that's the hope. And so they are going to try that. So we are in the process of working with them. They're not going to entirely remove the infrastructure, but we're going to bag it, close it down and turn them off and say these are no longer EV spots, remove the signage for that. So right now we have 20 ports at Fuller. We would be moving down to 6. And at Kim Webster Place Lot, we have 14, moving down to 4.
These are all level 2.
These are all level 2.
And it currently is it the same price as the charge point level 2?
Nope.
They are more expensive.
And are they getting less use?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, the market has spoken on these things.
That's great.
And are they getting a price increase also?
No, not yet.
Are you in control of the price increase?
They're not. They are not getting the price increase. They have in their contractual agreement, it says they must get select board approval for a rate increase. So I am hoping that with some time that we won't even have to have that conversation. But if we do, I will revisit that with all of you because it is.
I'm glad to see that. That's good.
Sure, the fast chargers in Brookline are those charge points?
2 of them are charge points, and then the ones at Webster Street Lot or excuse me, 2 of them are Green Spot along Beacon Street, and then the ones in Webster Street Lot are ours.
Or charge point?
Charge point in the towns. And our level 3 stations get higher usage than their level 3 stations.
It's a much better arrangement.
Yes, I mentioned that panel yesterday at the conference. I've been trying to offer you all some kind of coming soon conversations that we staff have been working on and or think it would be useful for you all to weigh in on, and that includes net metering agreements, a Brookline Green, which is our community choice aggregation program, an update on that, and discussion on carbon offsets as well as renewable energy credits. So those are all coming in the next couple of months. And that's what I have. Thank you for letting me still roll.
Great. Thank you, Alexandra. We other business. I do have one thing about the business, which is I just checked. So I don't know if you know this, my wife teaches user experience, which is basically design, whatever, at the university. And I just asked her if she would be willing to get her students to work on some graphics and some thinking around like the data that you should provide for reporting. And if you want that, she said she would do it, and she would get her students and they'd come up with a bunch of options and help do data analysis and presentations. So I don't know what the timing on that is, because we had a very brief conversation, but if you're interested, that is available.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Okay. When's our next meeting? When is the next meeting?
December 3rd or 4th. What is it? December 3rd, 5 o'clock.
Great. Okay.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah.